Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlicker, shills, dislikes, search, peasants, vassals, minions, meat sacks. I'm Useful Idiot. Welcome. And let's go back to the not so good at USA and talk about these new police shootings that happened in Baton Rouge. And so now we have more police officers being targeted. I think there was 5 or 6 in total that were shot at, several wounded, and 2 or 3 killed. And 5 police officers targeted and killed in Dallas. And so this kind of confirms once again my observation that in some respects we have colonial warfare unfolding in the United States, and in some respects it can be characterized as an insurgency. And now that we have a pattern and a trend, it looks more once again like an insurgency, and it actually has a kinship to some of the events we see that happen in the Middle East, because both of these shootings involve ex-veterans. So ironically, we have insurgents or terrorists shooting at Americans who were previously trained by the U.S. military. So kind of an odd connection there. But so now, because there's a self-fulfilling prophecy, the fact that I said there was not a war on cops before, now I have to backtrack and say that now, through this self-fulfilling prophecy, there is now a war on cops, because once we see something like this occur, like we've immediately seen, there is a copycat attack on police, and probably what will happen is this will encourage it to happen more. And unfortunately, this will escalate all the things I brought up in the previous video about the Dallas shootings, where the police behavior and the militarization of the police and military tactics in the field in the United States will all be further justified, and in fact, both the militant black community will justify further violence, and the militant police elements in the police will justify their continued escalation of violence and retribution. I'd like to think things could wind down as things get overheated, but it seems like it will go the other direction. So in essence, there is now a war on cops, and the figures don't bear it out, and that's one of the things I brought out in the previous video. And in fact, a new Harvard study came out and shows that you're more likely to be confronted and shot and potentially killed by a policeman as a white person than even as a black person. And I brought up statistics in the last video I did on the Dallas shootings that show that somewhere in the vicinity of over 200, near 250 white people killed by police, and 130, 140, 150 some odd blacks killed by police. But also the figures I brought up that in 2014, I believe, it might have been 2000, I think it was 2014, was the safest record, safest year on record for police. And this year still, up until these recent shootings, we only had about 20 cops who had been killed in the field, shot and killed, while we are on track to have 500 or 600 U.S. citizens killed, and those are only the official numbers. So anyway, in some respects, as I brought up before, there was no war on cops, but now this continued discussion of it, and this manifestation of these new attacks now shows that we have like I say, a self-fulfilling prophecy that we have a war on cops. And so unfortunately we will see more of this. But I stand by my observations too, that a lot of this looks like an insurgency, almost a third world insurgency, when we have zones, urban zones, disenfranchised, poverty-stricken black neighborhoods that are loaded with subculture and violence and guns, and the police giving full swing in these occupied zones, much like a military force occupies, and the fact that the police are militarized and use military tactics, and we end up with so many casualties, is another indicator of this colonial war. So there we have it. I also want to point out, as viewers brought up in the previous video, certainly there's a potential that these shooters, including this new one, could be agent provocateurs set up in these situations to create this kind of violence, and there to justify a backlash by the state, and to undermine the Black Lives Matter movement, and all the rest. And certainly I factor that in, and I will always consider that a potentiality. But I tend to look at the overall facts and make a judgment as best I can. And right now, it's just unclear. But what is clear is the results, and the results are the police and the politicians and the states will use this as an opportunity to strengthen the state and undermine civil liberties. And the Black Lives Matter movement will continue to be undermined, and will probably continue to be associated with further violence. So stay tuned. It's a long, hot summer, and there could be more to come. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.